Yo guys, what's going on? My name is HackingIsFreedom and welcome to the 31st episode of What Was Cut, a series where we would take a look at what exactly was cut from our favorite games. Today we're going to be talking about the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Even though I'm a huge fan of the Modern Warfare series, I've never actually fully completed the campaign. Like, I know what happens and whatnot, but I've just never sat down and completed it. I pretty much only played multiplayer and Spec Ops back in the day, so I guess I just never got around to it. I really should complete it sometime though. Anywho, let's get a revenge on Makarov and figure out what was cut. Textures are up first, and surprisingly, we don't have as many as Modern Warfare 2. These first ones are various minimap icons like this blue exclamation point, a small explosion graphic, two icons of an IMS, one friendly version and one enemy version, and a yellow grenade, which was probably used as an early icon for the ammo supplies in Spec Ops. There's also two kill feed icons, one for the Harrier and the other seems to be the attack helicopter from Call of Duty 4. This icon of an RPG missile seems to be the same icon used in COD 4 when selecting the RPG on the D-pad. This is most likely just a leftover. Speaking of leftovers, each of the camos from the previous game are still left over in the files of Modern Warfare 3. These surprisingly do have a partial purpose, but we'll be seeing that later in the video. There's also 4 leftover images from Modern Warfare 2 that were most likely used as placeholders for the main menu. This one specifically, however, is from the level selection screen, which is actually a developer feature only. These 5 title cards were removed from the game, but they can only be found in the data of the PS3 release. The most interesting one is this one here. It's labeled as MW Series Sandman, while all the other ones have generic naming. Maybe they were planning on making some PS3 exclusive title cards, but decided not to later in development. A single emblem goes unused as well, which can also be found in the PS3 release. The start screen from the very first Call of Duty is for some reason still left over in the game files. I guess this could have been used as a placeholder for the legal screen and stuff, but you would think the devs would use something from the previous game, or at least something newer. There's 2 images of loading screens for cut Spec Ops missions still left in the game's files, but sadly, that's all we have of these missions. The first one is obviously a leftover from COD 4, and it's labeled as SO Defend Ferris Lobby. The other one is from a mission called Assault Time, and it seems to share similarities with the Spec Ops mission Fire Mission. Finally, there's a picture of a few developers hidden inside the game files. This picture isn't seen anywhere in-game, so I wonder if this was a secret for data miners, or it could have just been planned for a secret that wasn't fully made. While still on the topic of textures, let's go over the cut perks. This first one is called Free Runner, and it would have allowed you to sprint forever, similar to Modern Warfare 2's Marathon perk. This next one seems a bit strange. This would have been a perk for extended mags. This may have been used for testing at a very early point in development because extended mags attachment is in Modern Warfare 2, so I can't really see them changing it into a perk. This next one is pretty interesting. It's called Challenger, and this would have allowed you to gain double XP at the cost of half of your health. We have a perk for the Tactical Insurgent, which is most likely just a leftover from Modern Warfare 2, and it was most likely used as a placeholder before the final version was complete. There's also a perk for Akimbo pistols. Once again, this is another leftover from Modern Warfare 2, and it was most likely used as a placeholder for the actual Akimbo attachment. This next perk seems like it didn't get that far in development as it's still using a placeholder image, but it's called Any2, and this would have allowed you to select any perk for your second and third perk slot, at the cost of this perk being in your first slot. I believe this was also cut from Modern Warfare 2, so this may have been scrapped altogether for balancing reasons. Burst Fire seems to be a perk or possibly a death streak that allowed you to shoot any gun in a 3-round burst faster. I'm not really sure how useful this would have been, so perhaps that's why it was cut. Remote MG Turret is kind of an unknown perk, but by the name, we can speculate it would have allowed you to control a sentry gun when placed. This next one is called Javelin ×1. This most likely would have given you a single-use javelin and was probably used in the early versions of the campaign before the javelin became a Crater class weapon. If you remember the RPG ×2 perk from COD 4, it's pretty much the exact same thing. There's a similar perk called Stinger ×2, which obviously would have given you a stinger with 2 shots in it. This is most likely an updated version of the previous perk. Strangely, the RPG ×2 perk is actually still in the game's files, although it's just pretty strange that they use 3 different icons pretty much for the same ability. Black Box was a perk that would increase the duration of in-air kill streaks. I'm pretty sure this was cut for balancing reasons. Shell Shock, I believe, was a perk that would have reduced the damage of explosions, but there's some code left indicating that it may have also put a riot shield on your back to protect you from bullets. Endgame was a death streak that would have multiplied your player's health by 4 at the cost of only a 10-second life. This next one is called Siege, and it's unknown if this would have been a perk or an earlier version of the Stability weapon proficiency, although this version would have completely immobilized you but gave you much greater accuracy and lower recoil. This was probably cut because it just didn't suit the flow of the game. Saboteur was a perk that allowed you to capture objective points faster. Finally, we have a perk called Heartbreaker, and it seems an icon was never made for it as it uses an early version of the Assassin perk. This would have allowed you to remain hidden from heartbeat sensors. The Killstreaks are up next, and I want to thank Mr. Jarney for this footage. He's actually found a lot of interesting things in various Call of Duties, so definitely go check him out. Anywho, first up, we have some code left over that indicates a chopper gunner from Modern Warfare 2 was planned, although this was most likely used as a base for the Osprey gunner. The Harrier killstreak from Modern Warfare 2 can partially be restored, although it doesn't seem to attack enemy players. I'm pretty sure the devs just reused the code from the Harrier for the Precision Airstrike. There's an interesting killstreak left over that seems to be some sort of laser-designated strike. It uses the F2000 to designate the area, which is pretty interesting since this weapon isn't seen anywhere in the final game. There's coding left over for some sort of mortar strike, which did appear in the 2022 release of Modern Warfare 2, although it seems very unfinished using a lot of placeholder stuff. Finally, we have air superiority, which I believe first featured in Call of Duty Ghost. I guess this killstreak was planned quite early on, but it wasn't finished until Ghost. Up next are the various cut maps, and just like Modern Warfare 2, all of these maps only have text strings left over, except for like 5 of them. The first map listed is Afghan, which is most likely just a leftover from Modern Warfare 2. Alps is actually one of the few that has a loading screen, and as we can see, it's very unfinished. It also has a description of Kyle's first map and some placeholder text. Brooklyn is another map that has a loading screen, although it just seems to be a placeholder. It does have a description, but it just copies what it says on the loading screen. I guess this was going to be some sort of map set in the hood of Brooklyn, and most likely would have been pretty small. Coast also has a loading screen, although we can't see much of the map, but it does look pretty cool. Crossfire is most likely a leftover from COD 4. Dock sadly has no information left. No code, no description, no assets, nothing. All we have is the name. Same goes for Drug Lord. No information other than this text string of the map and a description of Drug Lord with an exclamation point. Flood is the exact same as Drug Lord. No information other than a description of Flood, all in caps with an exclamation point. High Rise is most likely a leftover from Modern Warfare 2. Karachi is most likely a leftover from Modern Warfare 2 as well. Plaza is actually an earlier name for Arcaden, and it does have a loading screen to go along with it. Revolt has no information left, so we can only speculate. It kinda sounds futuristic though. It's either Revolt or Revolt, one of the two. Roundabout is another with no information, so we can only guess. Perhaps it was going to be a big circular map? Rust is quite obviously a leftover from Modern Warfare 2, and you can actually play on Rust in Modern Warfare 3 with the Plutonium client. Sloped is another with no information. It has the description of sloped placeholder text in all caps, but that's it. I wonder if this map was going to be based in or around a ski resort. That would have been pretty cool to see. Southside is also completely unknown, but perhaps it was like a second part of the Brooklyn map. Strike is a leftover from the previous 2 games, Subbase is another leftover from Modern Warfare 2, and finally, Warlord actually does have a loading screen, although it's another temp one, so it doesn't really give us any more information. It's time for the sounds and voice lines, and surprisingly, there's not that many left over. As for voice lines, we only have a few for a game mode called Grinder, which is actually an earlier name for the Drop Zone game mode.
Grinder. Hardcore grinder. Get to the target area.
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 Grinder. Hardcore grinder. Get to the target area. Grinder. Hardcore grinder. Get to the target area.
Grinder. Hardcore grinder. Get to the target area.
Finishing up with the sounds, there's only 3, and all of these relate to a removed ending cutscene, which we'll also see later in the video. It's weapon time, but sadly, a lot of the cut weapons only have a create a class icon, with no models remaining anymore. But first up, we have the MP44, also known as the STG-44, and this is most likely a leftover from COD 4. We have the M40A3, which is also a leftover from COD 4 as well. The AT4, which was actually seen in E3 gameplay of the mission Black Tuesday, but you can actually mod this back into the game and use it. The Ranger, which was most likely used as a placeholder or just a leftover. The R700, which seems to be a carryover from COD 4, as this weapon is actually usable in Modern Warfare 2. The Thumper, which is a leftover from Modern Warfare 2, and it can only be used in the campaign. The PP2000, which you can only spawn and use in campaign, and it's exactly the same one from Modern Warfare 2. The TAR-21, which only has a create a class icon. The TMP, which is another leftover. the Barrett 50 Cal, which is obviously a leftover from Modern Warfare 2, the Dragunov, which is another leftover from COD 4, the M9, which can only be spawned and used in Spec Ops, the F2000, which we saw being used as a placeholder for the designated laser strike, the RPD, which only has a kill feed icon, but it can be spawned and used in Spec Ops, the AK-74U, which apparently was cut due to multiplayer RAM limitations, the Intervention, which was probably used as a placeholder before the new snipers were made. You can also use this in Plutonium, the Light Stick, which is another leftover from Modern Warfare 2, and it's actually a campaign-only item, the MK12 SPR, which was likely intended to appear in the mission Eye of the Storm, but the RSASS is used instead. The M1014, which was actually supposed to be featured in the game, but it was cut late in development. It can actually still be spawned in Spec Ops. The MG42, which is usually used as a placeholder for various mounted turrets the player can't access. Finally, we have the AUG. This can be obtained by editing the Juggernaut's M60, and this is where those MW2 camos come into play. If you edit the Juggernaut's M60 to have any camo, it'll appear as an MW2 camo on the AUG. So I'm guessing the devs pretty much just copy the Juggernaut code from Modern Warfare 2, so that's why the AUG appears when editing a camo. As we come to the end of the video, it's time for the oddities I found throughout the game. During the flashback to No Russian, Yuri has a unique player model that can only be seen by using hacks. The ACR has a unique white camo. This is the only gun to feature this camo, so it's unknown what the true purpose of it is. It may be an earlier version of the snow camo, but I'm not really sure. These three icons, I'm not entirely sure what they were used for. The first one is labeled as Specialty Airdrop Juggernaut, and my only guess is this may have been used as a stronger version of the Juggernaut you can only get in care packages. The other two are labeled as Specialty Light Armor and Specialty Deployable Vest, and I think both of these are earlier versions of the Ballistic Vest support streak. There's 3 unused models of Russian Navy members. I don't really know where these were going to be used, but if I had to guess, I would assume these guys were supposed to be seen on the Oscar II submarine. A secret ending was planned to play after the credits, where a mysterious man in the background sees what you've done to Makarov, and this is actually where those creepy sounds I featured in the sound section were supposed to be heard. It's actually a pretty cool and ominous ending. Finally, we have a completely cut mission that was found in Call of Duty Phantom, labeled as Patriot Crib Proto. A lot of the NPC animations are messed up because of the changes in the engine, and the level itself is missing a lot of sound files. This area is pretty much just a starting hub, where the game teaches you how to play and you run through the various fundamentals. And that's all I have for Modern Warfare 3. I actually did do a video on cut content from this game 8 years ago now, but this video was much better in production quality. Also, a big thanks to everyone that participated in the poll. I'm not surprised the original Modern Warfare 3 won, because I did the same thing with my previous COD video, which was Modern Warfare 2, and that beat out Black Ops and the newer COD by a landslide as well. Anywho, if you have a suggestion for the next What Was Cut episode, please feel free to comment down below. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!